Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we've got a really fascinating stack of sources that kind of challenges this whole idea that we need perfect certainty to live a meaningful life.
Yeah, it's a great collection. We're cutting across thousands of years here.
We really are. From ancient ethical codes like the Ten Commandments, all the way to modern business strategy with Peter Drucker.
And then grounding it all in these stories of just, sheer persistence.
So our mission today, I think, is to pull out the core principles for what the sources call living well.
Right. We want to show how things like self-knowledge, a solid ethical foundation, and service all kind of weave together.
To create what they call authentic forward motion.
It's basically a toolkit for navigating uncertainty, for traveling without a perfect map.
I love that idea. And that theme of the unknown path is so central. I was really struck by that opening quote from Rosalia de Castro.
Oh, the one about not knowing where the path leads.
Yes. I see my path, but I don't know where it leads.
Yeah.
Not knowing where I'm going is what inspires me to travel it.
And that's such a powerful reframe, isn't it? Uncertainty isn't the obstacle, it's the engine.
Exactly.
Meaningful progress happens not despite not having a map, but because you have principles to guide you. You need a kind of moral framework for the journey.
Okay, so let's unpack that framework.
Yeah.
It seems like the absolute foundation, the place we have to start, is self-knowledge.
You have to know who's driving.
Right. The material puts it so simply. Trust your identity. Be in touch with your reality.
And this is where we hit a really crucial distinction right away. Self-knowledge isn't about, having rigid, unchangeable views.
It's more fluid than that.
Much more. There's this maxim in the material: I believe, but I am not my beliefs.
Okay, that's a key distinction. Why is that separation so important? Wouldn't strong convictions give you stability?
They do, but think of it this way. Your identity is the vessel. Your beliefs are the contents.
Okay.
If you make them the same thing, then changing your mind on something feels like a personal failure, an identity crisis.
But if your core self is separate,
then you have the stability of knowing who you are, but the flexibility to change what you think. It's the only way to really grow.
but the sources are quick to point out that this road to an authentic self has one massive roadblock.
A huge one. Self-deception.
Right.
I mean, if you're trying to be in touch with reality, lying to yourself is the ultimate denial of that. Eric Hoffer had that brutal warning.
We lie loudest when we lie to ourselves.
Exactly. You can't build anything real on a foundation of internal lies. It'll just collapse.
And since you never really, arrive at perfect self-knowledge, this has to be a constant process.
It's a continuous effort. It's not a destination. We saw that mindset in the quote from Lionel Messi, even at the absolute peak of his game.
Yeah, that was amazing. He said, "The day you think there are no improvements to be made is a sad one for anyone,"
It's just about cultivating that discipline of always looking, always noticing.
which connects right to that practical tip from Holly Solomon. Every day, learn something new.
Just that constant input. It keeps you from getting stagnant.
So that's the internal architecture. Know yourself and commit to always improving.
Now we need the external framework, the ethical guardrails that guide how we interact with the world.
And this is where we pivot to timeless ethics. The sources specifically bring in the Ten Commandments, not as, say, religious dogma, but as these really practical guardrails for just human flourishing.
And the power of that text is its clarity. It divides our ethical world into two spheres. The first four are what they call the vertical commandments.
Right, establishing our priorities, what we worship, how we use our time.
Things like avoiding idolatry and keeping the Sabbath.
Okay, but let's pause there for a second. For a modern audience, why this text? Why not, say, Stoicism? And how does something like idolatry apply now? People aren't bowing to statues.
That's a fair question. I think the sources use this framework because the rules are so clear-cut. Stop doing this. And modern idolatry is, well, it's everywhere.
How so?
We might not have golden calves, but we absolutely elevate career or status or money into these non-negotiable gods.
And we sacrifice things at their altar.
We sacrifice rest, family, health. That's modern idolatry, worshiping something temporary as if it were ultimate.
So the Sabbath principle then becomes less about a specific day and more about, what, building in necessary rest.
Exactly. It's a structured resistance against the tyranny of the urgent. It preserves the very self you're trying to know.
That makes sense. Okay, and then you have the other set of rules.
The horizontal commandments. These govern our relationships with each other. Honor your parents, don't kill, don't steal, don't bear false witness.
They're all about protecting the community's integrity.
Protecting the dignity of other people.
I want to dig into that last command about coveting. Because the source material gets so specific. It lists the neighbor's house, wife, animals, and even the neighbor's slaves.
Yeah.
That's obviously a really difficult reference for a modern reader.
It absolutely is. And we have to acknowledge that. We read a word like slaves through a completely different moral lens today. But the core principle behind that very specific, very comprehensive list is timeless.
Which is, don't compare.
Exactly. Resist destructive comparison. Because coveting is an internal poison, isn't it?
It totally is. It steals your contentment.
That's why it's last on the list. It's the mental state that so often leads to the other actions, like stealing or lying. Resisting that impulse is the key to inner freedom.
So you build this authentic identity, you protect it with these ethical guardrails, and what you get is character.
And there was that great Bruce Lee quote that tied it all together.
Knowledge will give you power, but character respect.
And that character has to be expressed. It can't just be an internal project.
Right. And this is where it gets really dynamic. We shift from internal character to external action. We shift to service.
And the story of Abe Brown is it's a perfect illustration of this.
Tell us a bit about him. He was a successful football coach, right?
Highly successful. A champion coach at Blake High School in Tampa. He eventually retired to become a pastor, but his real life's work started after visiting a former player in prison.
What did he see there?
He realized that most of the inmates, especially the most marginalized, had no one. 0 visitors. They were totally cut off from the human chain.
Wow.
And that one realization launched him on this new path. He spent 20 years visiting prisoners, getting volunteers, and crucially, building reentry programs to break the cycle.
He wasn't just offering comfort. He was fixing a systemic problem. He was touching the untouchables.
And this connects right to that reference from the book of Matthew in the sources. When you refuse to help the least of these, you are refusing to help me.
So service is the positive action. The commandments say don't harm, and service says actively heal.
You've got it. It's the other side of the same coin.
Okay, this all feels very moral, very human. So how on earth does Peter Drucker, the hard-nosed business management guru, fit into this story? It feels like a sudden left turn.
It seems like it, but it's actually the critical link. What Abe Brown was doing, without maybe using this language, was solving a systemic cost problem.
A cost problem.
Yes. Drucker's work explains why. He argued that isolation, whether it's moral or economic, is just fundamentally inefficient. He came up with this concept called economic chain costing.
Economic chain costing. Okay, break that down for us.
The basic idea is that the real cost of a product isn't what happens just inside your own factory walls. It's the cost of the entire process, every link in the chain.
So from the raw materials all the way to the customer.
All the way. If your tech company uses rare minerals, you have to account for the labor practices to mine them, the environmental costs, the shipping, all of it, even if dozens of different suppliers manage those steps.
To find the true cost, then, you'd have to share information and align systems across that whole chain.
Exactly. And Drucker saw the obstacles right away. Companies had incompatible systems. They didn't want to share sensitive info. It's easier to just stay in your own silo.
But he said that wasn't an option.
He was completely clear about it. He said, whatever the obstacles, economic chain costing is going to be done. He argued that if you don't do it, you'll eventually suffer from a massive cost disadvantage. Isolation, in the long run, leads to failure.
So what does that mean for you, the listener, trying to live a good life? What's the analogy?
The analogy is that just as no company can be an island, no person can either. We can't just optimize our own individual lives, our personal efficiency, while ignoring our impact on the broader human chain.
So if we maintain these isolated ethical systems
And resist the information sharing of real self-honesty, we end up at a moral and social disadvantage. Abe Brown understood that. He saw that the system that isolates prisoners is devastatingly inefficient for everyone.
and service is how we do our human chain costing.
That's a perfect way to put it.
That provides a really powerful reason for action. But now we hit that wall, the complaint everyone has, I just don't have the time.
The perennial excuse, right. And this is where we need creative persistence. Margaret Atwood was so pragmatic about this.
Her view was just, do it anyway.
Yeah. She said, if you have a job in the daytime, you write at night. It's all a question of how much you want to do it. It just shatters the idea that you need these perfect, empty blocks of time.
And the story in the sources about the novelist Susan Straight is just, it's an incredible illustration of that.
Her story's amazing. She was a young mom living in Riverside, California. She had these tiny little windows of time to write.
So what did she do?
She'd walk her daughter in a stroller, sometimes in the brutal heat, until the baby fell asleep. And then right there, she'd sit down on the curb and write her novel in a notebook.
An entire novel written on the sidewalk.
In these stolen moments, the sources call this finding the moments inside the moments, or double opportunities.
A double opportunity. So
Yeah.
layering things together.
She wasn't just walking to soothe her child. She was getting exercise, and she was creating her novel. You find the time through creativity, not by waiting for perfect conditions.
It reframes the whole question.
Yeah,
It's not,
or-
where can I find 3 hours? It's, what 2 things can I do at once right now?
Yeah. And that persistence should be consistent, not frantic. This connects back to the wisdom of Hippocrates on health.
Right. He said, walking is man's best medicine.
It's the perfect metaphor. Simple, consistent forward motion. No hurry, no pause.
He also said that the greatest medicine of all is to teach people how not to need it.
Right. That consistent walking, living correctly, is prevention. It's better than some heroic, last-minute effort to fix a problem. Consistency keeps the whole human chain healthy.
But that consistency takes real commitment. There was that African proverb in the material.
A feeble effort will not fulfill the self. It's not about just being busy. It's about authentic, dedicated persistence in those small daily acts.
Okay, so let's try to bring all these threads together for you. We've covered these 4 critical layers.
First, that foundation of authentic self-knowledge.
Then the ethical guardrails that provide the structure.
Third is dedicated service, which is the positive action you take within the human chain.
And finally, creative persistence, the method for actually getting it all done.
And the ultimate goal of putting all this together was captured so well by Randy Pausch. He said, "We don't beat the reaper by living longer. We beat the reaper by living well."
So this brings us all the way back to Peter Drucker's insight. He said that in business, isolation and refusing to share information leads to a systemic cost disadvantage.
So we want you to take that idea and apply it to your own life. Where are you maintaining isolated systems? In your personal life, your work, your ethics?
Where are you resisting that information sharing that comes from being truly honest with yourself?
And where is that isolation causing you a moral or social disadvantage by ignoring your connection to the wider human chain?
What's the first simple, consistent step you can take today? That first act of walking toward connection and real forward motion.
Don't wait for the path to be perfectly clear.
Just take the first step. Trust the process.
Because the path is waiting, and as we saw from the very beginning, not knowing where it leads. Well, that's exactly what should inspire you to travel it.